Hey guys, Jexie here. Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, please subscribe. It helps me a lot. Hit the thumbs up, do all that stuff. My channel is all about my experience with recovery from active addiction, and I just share my experience on things and give my thoughts on things. So if that's something you're interested in, thank you for joining me. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you guys so much. You guys know how much I appreciate you. I answer every comment. I try to show my love as often as I can. So thank you for all your support. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. So in today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the interview that was done between Lindsay Lohan and David Letterman. It's from 2013, I think. But it's been up in the news lately when they were talking about addiction, and I thought we'd chat about it a bit. Okay, so first off, if you haven't seen the interview, stop this video, go down in my description box, watch the link, watch the full interview, and then come back here and you can hear my thoughts. Unfortunately, I can't show clips. I know that those are things that get copyright claimed, so I am not able to actually react to it live. But a couple things to know first. For anybody who may not know, so I originally started majoring in journalism in college before I changed my major to philosophy. And so there's a lot of things that people may not realize about what happens in interviews like this prior to the interview. So you'll notice at one point early on in the interview, she says, "These are not things we talked about in the pre-interview." So on a regular interview, whenever you're going to interview for anybody on any news show, late show, really even minor high school articles, right? Like it doesn't matter what. The general procedure is you send the person you're interviewing ahead of time the list of questions that you plan to ask them, them and their people, right? Obviously, if you have a publicist or a manager and stuff, they all review the questions and they have an opportunity to say, "We're not talking about this, we're not talking about that." And yeah, as a reporter or as somebody who's the interviewer, you have the option to throw out surprise questions, to ask things that we're told we're not discussing. You can do that, but chances are, if you do that, not only will you not ever have an opportunity to interview that person again, you probably won't get other people to come on your show as well, because if you have a reputation for being the type of interviewer that does not stick with what is agreed upon, you're not going to get people to come on your show. So it's really important that those questions are thought of ahead of time. Now, obviously, in this situation, Lindsay knew that they were going to bring up rehab in some sort of way. And it's very clear from watching this interview that she does have some sort of relationship with David Letterman, which I think he felt made it okay for him to kind of cross a line that a normal interviewee situation wouldn't have. And what do I mean by crossing a line? When she says, "These are not things we discussed in the pre-interview." Now, again, there may have been another step. Sometimes they actually will go through and talk to the interviewer prior to filming live shows like this and actually go through some of the questions. But she mentioned she wanted to do a joke with him about coming out with a tag on her dress, but she wasn't able to get in touch with his people. So that clearly didn't happen. They clearly didn't speak directly until the interview. And when she makes a statement, "This is not something that was discussed in the pre-interview," that's automatically telling you, that's her telling him, "You're reaching a subject that I don't feel comfortable talking about." And she's doing it in a way that is appropriate for live television. And I think obviously, look, she's promoting a movie, so she has to do the rounds. It's probably why she had pushed off going to rehab until the film was released. It's very possible that she was contractually obligated to do certain interviews with the movie prior to going to rehab. I'm not 100% sure, but you do have contracts when you work with movies that deal with not just being in the movie, but certain types of promotions, certain types of interviews, especially when you're the star. A lot of times the movie production company will set up a lot of those interviews. They pick the clips that they show. These are all done ahead of time. So a lot of this stuff is very, very scripted. And you can tell that some of this went off script. And I think it's important, and the reason I bring this up is, one, I think regardless of whether you like Lindsay Lohan or not, and regardless of her past and what's been going on with her, I don't really know what she's been up to the last few years. I don't really follow her much, but the fact is she handled herself with a lot of poise. She was able to make jokes and kind of brush it off. But I can see why people were upset. The fact is that he said he had a list of things he wanted to talk about that she'd overcome, and she read the list and said no. Now it's clear that he at least respected her enough not to do that. Um, but it's also clear that reading what he had thought about talking about shook her up. And I feel like maybe that was done intentional. Maybe intentionally. Maybe he never intended to go through and list any of those things that were on that paper, but it was clear that it was to get a rise out of her. And he mentions that he was surprised that she would come on the show after all the jokes he's made about her and stuff like that. And so it's obvious that although they had some kind of relationship, there was clearly something else going on. You can also see at the very last second of the clip I'm going to show you, the very end before the video shuts off, you see the interview ends and her people come on stage. And based on the way that they look and the way that they came up so quickly, I would say that there was some I would venture to say there was some words said. He said something to her right when it ended also. But I think it goes to show you like how easily it is that we brush off someone struggles with addiction, right? Like, yeah, going to rehab is a great thing. Trying to better oneself is a good thing. Um, and then she mentions multiple times like it's not really a laughing matter. Like, and she takes full responsibility. Like she is somebody at that point in time who clearly knows that she's in trouble, clearly knows that she needs to do something about it, and is making the decision to go to rehab. My guess is that she probably would have wanted to go earlier, and that because of the movie coming out, she wasn't able to. And that's got to be tough. I mean, a lot of us, when it comes time for us wanting to go to rehab, like, we make that decision. And if we don't get into the rehab, like, right then, we don't often ever make the choice to go. Or it can take a long time before we choose to go again. And I don't know, it's almost uncomfortable to watch because I think back, right? Like, I try to put myself in someone's shoes. And I think back to like the worst of my addiction. And I was a pretty functional addict, right? Like, I did all the things. I worked, I took care of my kids, like I did all this stuff, but inside I was a mess. And like on my own private time, like I was a mess. And I think that if I had cameras in my face and paparazzi following me around and showcasing all of my mess all of the time, I don't think any of us who were in active addiction in that case would ever, like, I can't imagine what that must feel like, right? Like, I can't imagine what it must be like to have your active addiction broadcasted all over the world, essentially. Like, I think about the times, even times before I was really addicted, like, passing out on lawns, or as they mentioned a couple times, like blacking out, and or making choices that hurt people. And when you have when you have cameras that I don't know, like, it's hard to watch. And I guess that she clearly felt comfortable enough with him to go and agree to the show. But it just shows a broader perspective of how we talked about addiction then even versus now. Like, things have gotten better. They're not perfect, but we see how often that like somebody's addiction is laughed at and seen as like, I don't know, like comedy. And I can't even begin to imagine again like what it would feel like if I was struggling when I was at my worst point, to hear people making jokes about my behavior, right? Like, that's gotta really hurt. And I just hope that people see this old clip and see like how insensitive it is. We want people to do better. We want addicts to get better and live better lives, but we have to understand that it is a sickness. And whether you agree that addiction is a disease or not, the fact is we know it changes your brain chemistry. We know that it causes people who are in active addiction don't want to be in active addiction. It's not an easy journey to get out of. And I just think that this clip kind of showcases like how we treat addiction. And again, although it's getting better, although there's more resources out there, I am interested to see like if our overall perspective, especially of celebrities, changes. The next thing I'm going to be talking about once it's out is the Demi Lovato YouTube series that's coming out. She struggled a lot with addiction, was very open about it, and I think we need to talk about these people as if they're real people with real struggles. And even watching the clips of the Demi Lovato special that's coming out had me in tears, because I know what that's like. I've watched people come close to death. In fact, I don't know, a month ago, I guess, I did a video where I talked about how, as you guys know, I've lost a lot of people this year, and one of them, he had technically died, I guess maybe a year before he actually, died. His heart had stopped. They lost him like 3 times in a weekend, and they were able to save his life then, and he had been doing pretty well, and then he had a relapse, and he died, right? Like, addiction is serious, and it takes work, right? Like, it is a lifelong struggle to get better. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Did you guys watch this clip? Like, does it make you look at things in a different light, or is it, that's what happens when you're in the public eye? I think that we need to be more sensitive of people's mental health, and, understand that. Just imagine, like on YouTube, I get to choose what you see. I get to choose what I broadcast to the world, but celebrities don't get to do that. There's a difference between being a YouTube personality, like even a famous YouTube personality, versus a celebrity. Celebrities have camera people following them around all day long. YouTube celebrities generally show you what they want you to see. So it's not quite the same. I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Do you think that things have changed since this clip was done? Do you think that it was handled poorly, or do you think that's just the way it goes? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave your comment down below. I will respond. I respond to every comment I get, except for spam. Obviously, if it's a spam comment, I'm not replying. But even if you don't agree with me, I always reply. I appreciate you guys taking the time out to comment. So I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Bye, everyone.